My name's Tony Kamphuis with the Christian School Foundation. We are a collective undertaking of 90 Christian schools right across Canada. And we're involved in a number of different initiatives that help support and strengthen Christian schools. One of those is to have events that we call Estate Planning 101 seminars. Those are seminars where we delve into the kinds of questions that you have about the important documentation that goes into an estate plan. Well, in this video, we only have a short time, so we're going to give you the Reader's Digest version of that and invite you to seek out one of our estate planning seminars in your area so that you can get the fuller detail. With me tonight is Marinus Koole from Christian Stewardship Services. And Christian Stewardship Services is a wonderful ministry that seeks to help people like us who are trying to get these affairs in order in a way that makes sense and is consistent with our faith commitments. And so, Marinus, tonight we're going to be talking about estate planning. Why don't you tell me what's your sort of key piece of advice that you would start us off with?
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be here today. And so the biggest thing to do is to take that first step. And we're here to encourage you past the stumbling blocks that hold you back from taking that first step and to be organized in what you put in place for the sake of your loved ones. That gift that you give them is not the material things, not the money, but the fact that your affairs are in order and that they are taken care of when you pass on.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Now, I think we all know that the last will and testament is a key part of an estate plan, but you mentioned other important documents and get our affairs, plural, in place. What are the sort of things that you would say constitute an effective and a complete estate plan?
Yeah, I like to look at 6 things. Your last will and testament, that fundamental piece, power of attorney documents, providing for you when you're unable to do so yourself, trusts, life insurance, and succession planning, if it's important in your case, and plan giving. And I'll just talk about the middle 3 there just for a moment. And so trusts are simply a box, a shell, that manages some assets for a particular length of time for a particular person. And so as young families, you will put a trust in place to manage the money for your children while they're underage. Life insurance is an important piece of estate planning, and it provides for those you love when you're unable to, when you die prematurely. And it's a fundamental piece for young families. It's also important for as you move through life, but for different reasons, maybe for business situation or for paying off taxes upon your death, or it may be used to multiply a gift to an estate. And then finally, succession planning. If you're involved in any joint venture, business situation, or partnership, it's so important to have a plan in place so that that organization can continue on without you.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. And especially, I just want to come back to the issue of trusts. So you mentioned the trusts for the children that are not at the age of majority. Are there other common sort of situations that would require a trust?
Yeah, so as we move through life, there's different needs for trusts, and it may be for tax purposes. It may be for a special needs child. You want to put a special trust in place, and we call it, in common terms, a Henson trust, so that they don't get bumped off disability support. And maybe a spousal trust in a second marriage. Many different uses, particular to your situation.
Okay. Well, let's jump right in then, because our time is limited, to the last will and testament. That's a key piece in any estate plan.
Yeah, fundamental. And we all know about that one, right? It's a dry document, but you heard Tony say last will and testament. And so having a Christian perspective is important there as you work through your vision and what it is you'd like to accomplish. But that last will, putting that in place, it provides for your family, right? It sets things out for those you love. It puts in place a plan that is clear and describes how you would like what's left, your assets, upon your death, how you would like them divided up.
Okay. So obviously, you're not going to be around to be able to make sure that things are put into place the way you laid them out in your will. That falls to a person that fills the role of executor. What's an executor, and who should we be choosing as our executor?
So an executor role is one that needs to fill a lot of details out, take care of paperwork. And so you want to choose somebody who has that capacity, has that skill set, and is emotionally able to handle it, because it's a time of high emotions when somebody passes away, and is also willing to ask for help. So the executor doesn't need to do it all themselves. They need to make sure it all happens. And so they can ask professionals for help, but they need to make sure that the details get taken care of.
Okay. Do people typically appoint their spouse as their executor? And are there situations where you would recommend that they appoint multiple people, or what's the best approach in that situation?
Yeah, so you can, first of all, back to your spouse question, absolutely. For most of us, the default is our spouse is our executor, and that's because with relationships, most things roll over to our spouse, and it's very simple if they just need to sign the documents and carry forward, and they have that authority. Whether or not to choose multiple people, I always suggest you choose one person and then an alternate. But there are situations when jointly is a good idea, or jointly and severally, generally not with an executorship. The more people you get involved, the more they have to sign that document. And so it's simple to keep it a single person and an alternate. And your will is a clear script. They have to follow that script.
Right. I suppose it's a clear script if it's been formally put into place properly under the advice of a lawyer. But do we all need a will? Or would a single young adult not really require one? And if we do all require it, do we need to have a lawyer involved?
We all should have a will. As soon as we have some assets, we should have a will. And there's other parts of the estate plan, like powers of attorney, that you definitely should have. But if you don't have a will, it's called dying intestate, and then the government has a will for you. So they have a plan. Basically, all your residue goes to your next of kin. But you've missed out on tax saving opportunities, missed out on being able to give to charity, and missed out on planning opportunities of who you would like to bless. What's on your heart?
Okay. I just want to follow up because I know many of the people that are watching this video are going to be parents in younger families with school-age children. So what about guardianship for those children that are under 18?
So yes, as young families, choosing the guardians for our children is one of the toughest questions that you have to deal with as a young parent. You make a recommendation as to who you would like to have as guardian. And again, an alternate is always good to have. But then when you pass on, the person you choose has to apply to the government for that role to be confirmed. The government doesn't want that job, so they're not going to say no unless there's a reason. And that's what they're there for, to make sure that there's not a reason that the person you recommended should do it.
Okay, so if, for instance, the situation has changed and the sibling that you thought would be a perfect person to raise your children is no longer in a good situation, that's an example of where the court would say, let's look at the second recommendation that was made.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
and
great.
That's why it's good to have the alternate.
Right, yeah, good to have a couple of options in place. So clearly a will is really important. I just want to come back to that question about the use of a lawyer. Do you need to have a formal will signed by or prepared by a lawyer?
So we always recommend you work with a lawyer, but there are simple situations where it's not necessary. And indeed, you can write your own will. It's called a holographic will in your own handwriting. You can use a will kit or an online service, but you need to be careful for two things. Number one, that it suits the jurisdiction that you're in. And number two, that it expresses and will accomplish what it is that you hope to desire. And that's where getting some good advice is really helpful. And so Working with a lawyer is always our first recommendation. And when you consider the costs of not doing so, should there be litigation at the end, it's very quickly covers the little cost. It's a high cost for us cash flow, but when you compare the two.
Right. Okay. So obviously, last will and testament, key part of an estate plan. But what about those power of attorney documents? Tell us a bit more about those, because those two involve someone else making decisions for you while you're still alive.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're called power of attorney documents because indeed they are very powerful documents. While you're alive, someone's going to decide your healthcare decisions and your financial decisions. They need to make them in your best interest, but they do not have a script to follow. So they need to make them based on your situation at the time. So making subjective decisions for you. Incredibly powerful positions that you're going to choose someone to care for you.
Right. And there's two kinds, one for healthcare, one for property. What kind of person should you choose to be your power of attorney for healthcare?
Oh, someone who loves you a lot.
Yeah.
But for sure, two different positions, that healthcare and the financial. And someone needs to have possibly a very different skill set to do so. So that's why there's two separate roles. It could be the same person in some situations, but you want to choose somebody who has the skill sets. And again, possibly there's somebody who's in the healthcare field who would be perfect for that situation. Someone who is going to carry out your wishes as you would have wanted them, not how somebody else wants them, not how your siblings want them, but they're to do it in your best interest.
Okay. And would you say similar characteristics, really, for the person dealing with your property?
Similar, but it's a whole different field, right? Somebody might be very skilled in caring for a person and not very good with numbers. And so you want somebody who's good with numbers to take care of your finances.
Right.
And so different skill set. Again, it's all about how you would want to be cared for, how you would want your finances to be managed. So you want somebody who understands your beliefs and your concerns.
Right. Lots more that I'd love to dig into there, but I'm sensitive to the time. So we're going to move to the final, number 6, the final part of the estate plan that you mentioned at the start, Marinus. Just before we go there, I want to mention that you're going to see the opportunities via some links and other contact information that'll be in this video, but also that we'll email to you in the next day or two so that you can follow up and ask questions of Marinus or one of the other Christian Stewardship Services representatives in your area. And people often ask me, how is it possible that we're able to access that kind of advice, that faith-friendly expertise at no cost? Well, that's possible because your school's part of the Christian School Foundation, and we partner with Christian Stewardship Services to make their services available to you. So I really want to encourage you, if any of the conversation we've had so far stirs some questions or ideas in your mind, just give a quick call to Marinus or one of the other CSS representatives, and they'll be happy to walk with you, even if it's just a small question or perhaps a comprehensive review of your entire situation. Regardless, that's going to be available to you at no cost. What's the catch? There is no catch. It's the ministry that Christian Stewardship Services has been providing now for over 45 years. Okay, quickly, let's jump into planned giving. How is planned giving an astute thing to include in an estate plan?
Well, that's a tough question for me to answer quickly, Tony. It's my favorite one, planned giving, and as a Christian, we have a great opportunity because of God's example of planning the gift of Jesus and our salvation. But planned giving is looking at it and putting all the pieces together. So when we look at it as we're alive, planned giving is about using effective tools to give to the charities you love in a way that it can accomplish more than just writing a check. And CSS has a whole bunch of tools that we can explore with you if that's something you're interested in. When we look at your estate, it's about looking at what does your situation look like? What are the tax consequences of your assets? Because it's different for everybody. Who is it that you'd like to bless? And then explore, okay, how can we minimize the taxes, maximize the gift to the people you love, and also accomplish that in the best possible way?
Right. I've heard you mention before that when your estate is distributed, you give to your loved ones and your beneficiaries, you give to the tax man, and you can choose to have some of that tax money diverted to the causes that you love and that you believe are making a real difference in the world. So it's a wonderful opportunity, but it can also be a really smart financial opportunity to see those dollars form an important part of your legacy. Well, we've come to the end of our time. It feels like it's been a whirlwind, almost a deluge of information. And so I again want to encourage you to follow up if you have any other questions or you'd like to just have a review done, and make sure that you don't just take in this bit of information and think, oh yeah, we need to get after this. Marinus, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise. Is there any last final bit of advice that you'd like to send out?
Two things, just to affirm what Tony said, is to act. We're available, without any pressure, without any solicitation. We're here to walk alongside you and get to your peace of mind. And often when I sit with people at the table, then when I go away, they say, "Whew, that feels good. It was something I wanted to do, but just couldn't get past it." And, on behalf of the Christian School Foundation, we're available to you. And so we'd love to walk alongside you and give you peace of mind.
All right. Thanks again, Marinus Koole from Christian Stewardship Services, and thank you for listening.